A landfill worker pulled a wooden violin scroll fragment from fresh debris. A red federal tag still hung from it. The tag said Library of Congress, Stradivarius reference. That fragment was part of a $24 million loss. It had arrived in a dumpster from a neighborhood cleanup, tossed by volunteers who never noticed the tag. 14 authenticated Stradivarius components had been mistaken for scrap wood. The nation's only reference collection. Stephen Bauer, a retired luthier with federal credentials, had been entrusted with the collection. He didn't know they were gone. 3 days earlier, a flyer launched the HOA's annual beautification day. No mention of what might be inside workshops. Stephen's open workshop contained a locked cabinet filled with future loan fragments from the Library of Congress. Mia Pritchard, HOA chair, told volunteers to toss anything that looked like junk. They would. Stephen was out buying varnish. He'd left the side door open for the breeze. When volunteers reached his property, they saw shelves of old broken wood and did exactly as instructed.
These fragments embody 3 centuries of sound. Lose them, and you lose the Stradivarius secret.
The cabinet held 14 silk-lined compartments. Each fragment was authenticated, insured, and irreplaceable. The loan was personally guaranteed by Stephen. If anything happened, he'd be liable for up to $24 million. He left the door ajar for the mountain breeze. That simple habit never seemed dangerous. Email from HOA chair Mia Pritchard. All volunteers assemble at 8 a.m. sharp. Any exterior clutter is subject to removal. No exceptions.
If it's outside, it's junk. Don't overthink it. We're here to beautify, not appraise someone's old woodworking pile. That's exactly what we're clearing. If it was valuable, they'd have locked it up.
Stephen pulled out of his driveway, heading for the varnish supplier. He'd be gone 2 hours at most. By 10:15, the dumpster sat alongside his workshop. The only barrier was a hand-printed sign that read, "Private Workshop. Do not enter." A volunteer lifted a maple fragment, its red tag fluttering. He gave it a glance, shrugged, and dropped it into the bin.
They look like art project scraps. Just toss everything in the bin.
The volunteers swept the workshop like a forgotten closet. They didn't read the tags. They didn't pause. A hand closed around a fragment marked Stradivarius 1715. The federal seal was bright as a stop sign, but no one stopped. One by one, 14 certified pieces of history arced into the dumpster. Each thud buried a century of sound. By 10:45, the bin was 3/4 full. The hauling truck's engine coughed and settled, ready to finish the route. Stephen turned onto his street and saw the dumpster blocking his driveway. His stomach dropped before his brain understood. He killed the engine and ran, shoving past a volunteer carrying a box of his labels.
The cabinet. The cabinet is empty. They took everything. Every single piece. Dr. Vasquez, this is Stephen Bauer. The Stradivarius loan. It's gone. All of it. Volunteers dumped the entire collection.
Behind him, the dumpster's engine revved. The truck pulled away, and with it, the only authenticated Stradivarius reference collection in the country.
Repeat that. 14 fragments? The entire reference collection?
She didn't wait for paperwork. She called the FBI art crime team, then booked the next flight to Denver. By midnight, she was standing in Stephen's driveway with 2 federal agents. The workshop door still hung open.
The tags should have stopped anyone cold. How did no one see them?
They thought it was junk. Broken wood scraps. The volunteers didn't even look at the labels.
The dumpster had already been tipped at the county landfill. Recovery crews scrambled, but the fragments were now mixed into a 30-foot mountain of daily waste.
A couple of broken violin parts. Honestly, if they were so important, they shouldn't have been lying around.
Mia's HOA insurance covered general liability. She had no idea that cultural property fell under a federal statute with personal exposure. The FBI flagged the landfill grid for a 48-hour window. Every new truckload pushed the fragments deeper into an unrecoverable abyss. Stephen sat alone in the dark workshop, the silence where centuries of music should have echoed, pressing down like a verdict. At the landfill, searchers recovered 9 fragments over 3 days. 5 were never found. The collection was now officially incomplete. The Library of Congress quarterly audit flagged the missing items as a line item. 5 components, valued together at $24 million.
Stephen, we have to file a formal claim. The Federal Cultural Property Statute requires it.
5 pieces. I had one job. Keep them safe.
The civil claim named HOA Chair Mia Pritchard, the volunteer leader Craig, and the disposal company as defendants under Section 668 of Title 18. Theft or destruction of cultural property from a museum is a felony, and Stephen's workshop qualified. A federal prosecutor began assembling criminal charges. Mia's homeowner insurance was about to prove useless.
They're suing me? For what? I organized a neighborhood cleanup.
The target letter arrived on a Friday, listing possible charges: reckless destruction, failure to report, and gross negligence. Mia read it at her kitchen table. Her weekend crumbled before it began.
Sure. I saw the red stickers. Just assumed it was an art project. Mia said clear everything, so we did.
The red circular federal seal was unmistakable. Each tag read Library of Congress, Cultural Property, Do Not Remove.
Those tags are standard for federal collections. Any officer, any volunteer should have understood they meant something valuable.
We have another fragment. That's 9 now. The condition is worse than I hoped, but the ID tag survived.
The search grid expanded. 70 workers combed through the landfill inch by inch, racing against a court-ordered deadline. A pair of gloved hands parted a clump of wet cardboard. Lodged inside was a splintered maple fragment, its red tag still dangling. The tag was smeared, but legible. Stradivarius 1708. A corner of the federal seal had torn away, but the serial number matched.
That makes 9 recovered. 5 are still missing. We'll keep searching, but every hour they sink deeper.
The official appraisal placed the total loss at exactly $24 million. Each missing fragment was a one-of-a-kind reference. Deputy Daniels' sworn statement closed the door on simple mistake. The tags were plain, and the volunteers chose not to read them. The Library of Congress filed the $24 million civil claim in federal court that morning. The summons landed on Mia's doorstep by noon. National news picked up the story within hours. The headline read, "Neighborhood Cleanup Destroys $24 million Stradivarius Collection."
They're making me the villain. It was a volunteer event. I didn't touch anything.
In interviews, Mia blamed the volunteers, blamed Stephen, blamed the library. She claimed no one ever told her the workshop was special. The HOA board called an emergency meeting that night. Homeowners packed the room, furious that their property values might plummet. One resident stood and demanded Mia's resignation. "You've exposed us all to liability we didn't ask for."
I was trying to help this neighborhood. You all wanted the streets cleaned. Now you want a scapegoat.
The board voted to suspend her immediately. Her term as HOA chair ended with a single bang of the gavel.
They turned on me, after everything I did for them.
Meanwhile, the federal prosecutor confirmed that criminal charges would move forward. The civil case was only the beginning. The insurance company's denial letter arrived certified mail. It was stamped in bold red. Claim denied, gross negligence. The letter read, "Coverage for destruction of federal cultural property is explicitly excluded under your general liability policy."
$1,400,000. They want $1,400,000 from me.
The actuarial calculation left Mia personally exposed for $1.4 million, her share of the $24 million claim.
The government is prepared to offer a plea agreement. Misdemeanor negligent destruction, restitution capped at $1.4 million, and no prison time, but the statute mandates lifetime registration as a federal cultural property offender. That's non-negotiable.
A registry, like a sex offender, for clearing a workshop.
The Federal Cultural Property Offender Registry is public. It would bar her from any federal grant, loan, or appointment permanently.
If I take this deal, I lose my career. If I don't, I could lose everything.
The prosecutor gave her 48 hours to decide. After that, the offer would include prison time. The Library of Congress issued a stunning reversal. Stephen's workshop was granted permanent federal sanctuary status under the Cultural Protection Act.
The board has doubled the loan, Stephen. 3 fragments previously restricted for advanced research are now yours.
After losing 5 pieces, they trust me with even more. I won't fail again.
The new shipment arrived in armored cases, each fragment tagged with enhanced security sensors. Meanwhile, Mia sat alone with the plea papers. Her attorney's warning echoed in her head.
Sign this, avoid prison, but I'll be on a federal registry for life. I won't apologize. I won't give them that.
She signed the plea agreement in silence, her pen pressing hard enough to tear the page. The deal meant no prison time. 1.4 million restitution and lifetime registration as a cultural property offender. As the ink dried, the bronze federal sanctuary plaque was being installed on Stephen's workshop, visible from the street. The sentencing hearing began in a silent federal courtroom. Stephen Bauer rose to deliver his victim impact statement.
Those fragments held secrets of sound from before our nation existed. 5 are gone forever because someone wouldn't read a tag.
He pointed to the 5 empty velvet slots in the display case. Not a single person had stopped to ask what they were.
The defendant ignored federal tags, ordered volunteers to toss everything, and never looked back. Gross negligence demands full restitution.
Under the Cultural Protection Statute, I sentence you to 3 years probation, 1.4 million restitution, and lifetime federal offender registration.
A registry, for the rest of my life. Over wood scraps.
Mia's face crumpled, but she said nothing. Her silence hung in the courtroom like a final refusal to accept responsibility. As the gavel fell, the criminal case closed. But the prosecutor immediately filed a civil motion for a permanent injunction against the HOA's beautification day. The motion argued that allowing the event to continue would constitute a public danger to federal cultural property. Judge Holloway scheduled the injunction hearing for the following Monday. The neighborhood held its breath. The HOA board reconvened in a tense emergency session. Homeowners packed the room again. But this time the anger was directed inward. The fear was no longer about Mia's mistake. It was about the HOA's continued liability if the event ever happened again. The board moved to cancel Beautification Day indefinitely. A show of hands passed almost unanimously, but their legal counsel warned them. A simple vote can be overturned. Only a federal court order makes the cancellation permanent.
They're panicking over nothing. It was one accident.
The HOA's attempts to self-cancel were legally hollow. Future boards could resurrect the event, and the federal motion would remain. Homeowners, fearing loss of property value, began filing personal claims against the HOA board for negligence. The HOA's insurance carrier sent a final notice. If the Beautification Day wasn't permanently barred by the court, they would terminate coverage for the entire subdivision. The board had no choice. They formally joined the federal motion, requesting the court to issue the permanent injunction against their own event. The neighborhood was in chaos. The only resolution now sat in Judge Holloway's courtroom. On Monday, Judge Holloway's courtroom was packed for the civil injunction hearing. The air felt heavier than the sentencing.
The defendant knew the workshop contained protected items. An email she sent proves it.
The email read, "Old wood in the workshop might be valuable. Just clear it all. Signed Mia."
I had a sign, tags, everything. They still threw it away like it was nothing. I don't want revenge. I want to make sure this never happens again to any collection, anywhere.
The HOA's lawyer argued the event was a cherished community tradition and a permanent ban would be government overreach.
They're killing the one thing that brought this neighborhood together, and it's on my head.
Judge Holloway questioned both sides sharply. Her tone suggested she viewed the risk to federal property as unacceptable. After 4 hours, the judge recessed. She said she would issue her ruling shortly outside the courtroom. Stephen stood alone, one hand resting on his workshop keys, waiting. The workshop transformed into a hub of learning. Curators from 3 continents gathered around the workbench.
This maple fragment taught a master in Cremona. He passed his secret to 5 generations.
Dr. Vasquez stood beside him, her gloved hands carefully rotating a 1710 plate for the scholars to inspect.
The board never expected the sanctuary to become a scholarly epicenter. You've done something remarkable, Stephen.
They see the new fragments. I still count the empty slots.
Each month, a master class brought 30 students. They studied hair-thin shavings under magnification.
I teach them how to see what makes a strad. The lost pieces are part of the lesson.
Late at night, he'd lift a sound post from the new collection, its grain as tight as the day it was cut.
Tomorrow the law speaks. But these fragments have survived wars and dumpsters. They'll survive whatever comes.
He placed the final fragment into the cabinet and locked it. The sanctuary would wait. A neighbor, once vocal at the HOA meeting, came to Stephen's porch in tears.
An apology. The first one. Too little, but at least something.
The evening town hall packed the community center. Half supported Stephen. The other half feared losing the HOA. A man shouted the court had no right to kill a tradition. A woman yelled back that the tradition had killed 5 centuries.
They're tearing each other apart, and I am the one on probation.
Mia sat in the back, a gray coat replacing her fuchsia blazer. Her eyes tracked every outburst. The local paper's editorial read, "This neighborhood's tragedy must end the HOA's unchecked authority." It urged the judge to sign the permanent injunction and called for the HOA's dissolution. By noon, the community was polarized. Friendships fractured. The ruling felt like a verdict on their shared life. Stephen spent the afternoon in his workshop, not answering his phone. The decision was hours away. The federal prosecutor filed his closing brief at sundown. Its final line, "Only a court-ordered permanent ban can ensure this tragedy never repeats." Outside the HOA office, preservationists held signs reading, "Protect the sound of history." Cameras rolled. Inside the courthouse, Judge Holloway sat with the evidence, the empty display case, the crimson tag, the email. She read Stephen's testimony again. 5 are gone forever. The words refused to dim. The prosecutor's final words from the hearing echoed. "If we fail history." They hung in the air. At home, his phone buzzed with a voicemail. "Mr. Bauer, the entire conservatory is behind you." He didn't listen. Across the country, museum directors called for the injunction. This would set a precedent for every collection. The judge reread the plea agreement, weighing a lifetime of consequences against a community's tradition. By midnight, the courthouse lights stayed on in Judge Holloway's chambers. A security officer made coffee. The ruling would be read at 9 o'clock. The community braced for an ending that would echo far beyond their quiet streets. At 9 o'clock, the courtroom was so silent the hum of the lights became a witness. Every seat was taken. The HOA's lawyer stood one last time. He argued that the event was the neighborhood's identity, not a weapon.
Your Honor, here is the tag that volunteers ignored. A federal seal, bright red. They saw it, and they threw it away.
I lost 5 pieces that can never be replaced. This workshop must never be vulnerable to a cleanup again.
Counselor, if the board revives the event next year, what protects Mr. Bauer?
She's going to kill it. The one thing I built.
Only a court-ordered permanent ban can restrain a future board from repeating this negligence. Trust is not enough.
Judge Holloway removed her glasses and looked across the courtroom. The moment stretched into a held breath.
This court will recess for 1 hour. I will issue my ruling from the bench then.
1 hour. Then, I know what the world will give back or take forever.
The hour passed. The courtroom doors opened, and Judge Holloway returned to the bench, her face set like stone.
This court finds that the HOA's beautification day poses an unacceptable risk to federal cultural property. A permanent injunction is granted.
The order canceled the event in perpetuity, effective immediately. Any future board that attempted to revive it would face federal contempt.
The defendant shall pay costs, and this neighborhood's annual event is hereby permanently barred. So ordered.
Dead. They murdered the one thing I built, and I am the one who has to pay for it forever.
Mia rose, her gray coat snapping as she pushed through the gallery doors. She didn't look back. A court clerk handed Stephen a sealed copy of the injunction. His hands trembled as he read the stamped seal.
It's over. The workshop is safe. 5 are still gone, but this will never happen again.
In the hallway, smartphones bloomed with headlines. The ruling spread faster than a bow across a string.
Tomorrow, I'll unlock the workshop and teach. The fragments will wait. They've waited 300 years. They can wait one more night.
The HOA board voted to dissolve. Insurance threats and homeowner suits made survival impossible. The gavel fell for the last time. At the entrance, a final notice covered the old Beautification Day poster. The words "permanently canceled" were stamped below a federal seal. That afternoon, the Federal Cultural Property Offender Registry updated. Mia Pritchard's name was added, her crime listed for the world to see.
I am on a registry. Public forever. Every employer, every grant, they'll see this before they see me.
The local paper ran the story on page 3. HOA chair, added to federal offender list, after dumpster tragedy. A few weeks later, an email landed in Mia's inbox. Subject: Federal Arts Grant Application Number 4471. Status denied.
The registry killed my career before it could even breathe again.
A few months later, the sign at the entrance had faded, but the cancellation order stood. No beautification day. Not ever again. Stephen's federal sanctuary plaque gleamed under a new security light. The workshop was a protected site, its priceless contents safe. For the neighborhood, the sanctuary was a daily reminder. Stephen's workshop stood guard, and the streets found their own quiet peace. The official sanctuary certification arrived in a thick white envelope. Stephen set it beside the federal plaque on his desk.
This is permanent. No HOA, no cleanup. The workshop is untouchable.
Neighbors planned a quiet block party. No committee, no flyer. Just a shared grill and laughter. At the party, a neighbor touched his arm and said simply, "We're sorry. We should have known."
An apology. It doesn't bring back the lost 5, but it's a start.
That week, he began a reference guide, Stradivarius fragments, a study for conservators.
Every fragment is a lesson. The lost ones teach too.
He sketched the curl of the new sound post, his pencil tracing the grain 3 centuries deep. The Library of Congress requested the first copy. It would train curators for decades. At dusk, he picked up his violin and let a melody drift across the quiet street. 1 year later, Stephen pulled his truck into the landfill that had once swallowed 5 pieces of history. A small marble plaque read, "Here, 5 Stradivarius fragments were lost to negligence. May their sound endure in memory." He knelt and touched the cold stone. The distant hum of machinery had become a quiet requiem. Back in the workshop, he lifted a violin built from the surviving fragments. Its amber varnish gleamed under the morning sun. He drew the bow across the strings. The note that filled the room was not a lament. It was a promise.
5 fragments disappeared, but the reference set still speaks. That's what I fought for.
The tragedy had reshaped federal policy. Museums tightened security. Volunteer clearances now required cultural property training. A framed article hung near the sanctuary plaque. Dumpster Stradivarius changes cultural protection law forever. He set the violin back on its stand. Outside, the street lay quiet. No flyers, no dumpsters, only music. He locked the workshop door, knowing the fragments would wait for the next eager hands. Each year, the sanctuary hosted a mandatory seminar for Library of Congress curators. Stephen's workshop had become a national classroom.
This workshop is a living textbook. Every fragment here teaches something no book can.
A decade ago, these shelves were empty. Now they're full of new knowledge and new people.
At a traveling exhibit, a girl pressed her nose to the glass, transfixed by a fragment labeled "On Loan from the Bauer Sanctuary." She would later apply for an apprenticeship. The dumpster tragedy had sparked her passion for preservation. The signage outside the workshop changed as well. A new bronze lettering read, "Bauer Sanctuary and Reference Library."
This place is proof that our heritage can survive even the worst negligence.
We lost 5, but we protected the rest. That's enough.
Neighbors waved when Stephen passed. No one asked him to clean up his junk anymore.
Now, let's see what 3 centuries of sound look like under a microscope.
After the last curator left, Stephen swept the workshop floor. Sawdust and shavings gathered in the corner. He straightened the cabinet. In the top row, 5 velvet slots remained empty. He paused there longer than usual.
5 losses. But look at what grew from the rest.
He lifted his violin, the one built from the survivors, and walked to the window. The sunset was gold. The first note rose clean and full, filling the sanctuary with a sound that asked nothing.
Enough.
Outside, the street was quiet. The faint rustle of the flag beside the workshop door was the only answer. He played until the light faded. Then he set the violin in its case and closed it gently. The workshop fell silent, but the fragments waited, ready for another century. And in the dark, the red federal tags still glowed, a promise kept.